In 1996, the gaming industry was in the middle of a revolution. 2D was fading, 3D was taking over, and developers were trying to figure out exactly what was possible in this new dimension. Platformers, racers, and fighters were leading the way, but nobody had quite created anything quite like Tomb Raider. Developed right here in the UK by a small studio called Core Design, it didn't just give us a new game, it gave us a cultural icon, defined the action-adventure genre, and changed what video game heroes could look like. Today, we're going to go deep into every single part of its history. The struggles, the successes, the masterpieces, the missteps, and how Lara Croft went from a rough design sketch to one of the most famous fictional characters in the world. This is the full detailed story of Tomb Raider.
Retro Corner, power on, press start, the game is strong, eerie vibes online.
The story begins in 1994. Core Design was a small studio based in Derby, best known for 2D platformers and racing games. Designer Toby Gard wanted to create something completely different, a game focused on exploration, movement, and atmosphere, rather than just shooting enemies. Originally, the main character was Laura Cruz, a tough South American mercenary, but as development went on, the team realized something, and female characters were usually just damsels in distress or eye candy. They decided to flip the script entirely. They reworked the character completely, made her British, highly intelligent, independently wealthy, and in completely control of her own journey. They renamed her Lara Croft. Technically, the game was a masterpiece for its time. The team built their own 3D engine from scratch, allowing for huge multi-layered levels that felt like real ancient structures. You weren't just moving left and right, you were climbing up and dropping down, navigating vertical spaces nobody had seen in games before. The controls became known as tank controls. Lara moved forward, backward, and turned on the spot rather than moving the direction that you pushed the stick. By modern standards, it sounds clunky, but by 1996, it was perfect. It gave you precise controls when jumping, and timing feels skill-based and added tension to every dangerous move. The formula was simple but perfect. Exploration, massive levels filled with hidden rooms, secret areas, and beautiful, eerie environments. Puzzles were logical but challenging, moving blocks, finding keys, figuring out mechanisms, and felt like real ancient traps. The combat was rare and impactful. You fought wild animals, mercenaries, and mythical creatures. But it was never the main focus. The atmosphere, Nathan McCree's iconic soundtrack, quiet, mysterious, dramatic, perfectly matched the feeling of being alone in ancient tombs. When it launched in October 1996 on PlayStation, Sega Saturn, and PC, it was an instant phenomenon. Critics gave it perfect scores, calling it revolutionary, groundbreaking, and the future of gaming. It sold over 7.5 million copies, won countless Games of the Year awards, turned Lara Croft into the first true video game superstar. She appeared on magazine covers, billboards, TV adverts, and even the front page of newspapers. Suddenly, video games weren't just for kids. Lara made them cool, trendy, and mainstream. Development on the sequel started almost immediately. The pressure was huge. Fans wanted more, and Eidos Interactive wanted to strike while the iron was hot. What changed? Well, Core Design listened to the feedback. People loved the original, but many said there just wasn't enough action. So Tomb Raider 2 shifted the balance. More enemies, more weapons, including the iconic shotgun, harpoon gun, and grenade launcher. Added vehicles, speedboats, snowmobiles, and jeeps, letting you explore levels in completely new ways. Locations were more varied and colourful, from the canals of Venice to the Great Wall of China to the snowy mountains of Tibet. Levels were larger, longer, and much more complex. It was another massive hit, selling over 8 million copies and becoming the best-selling game of 1997. Fans loved the variety and the excitement, but this is where we first started to see a split. Some players felt it was moving too far away from the quiet, mysterious exploration that made the first game so special. Combat becoming the main focus, puzzles were simpler, and the atmosphere feels less eerie and more action movie style. For the third game, Core Design wanted to push the engine as far as it could possibly go. They added better lighting, more detailed textures, smoother animations, and made the levels even bigger. Some of the new features were non-linear structures. You could choose the order you played in the middle sections: India, Nevada, London, or the South Pacific, giving you more freedom than ever before. There was more realistic movement. Lara could now run, jump, crawl, dash, and roll, making traversal feel much more fluid. And there was a much higher difficulty. Traps were deadlier, puzzles were more complex, and enemies were tougher. The problems were that this is where the cracks started to show. Because the levels were so big and complex, they could feel confusing and aimless. The difficulty was so high that many casual players got stuck and gave up. The balance between action and exploration was even more tilted towards combat, and the atmosphere felt less consistent. Jumping from sunny jungles to rainy London to frozen ice caps meant it lost its cohesive, mysterious feel of the original. Reviews were still mostly positive, but they were noticeably lower than the first two games. Sales were strong, but not quite as massive as before. Fans were starting to say, "We want the magic back." By 1999, the team at Core Design were exhausted. They'd been making a new Tomb Raider every single year for 4 years straight, and many of them were burnt out. They decided this would be the final game, the perfect ending to the saga. They went back to what worked best. Set almost entirely in Egypt, one single huge interconnected world full of ancient history. Focus went back onto puzzles, traps, and exploration. Combat took a back seat again. The story was deeper, darker, meaningful. Lara was searching for something, the legendary Scion, but accidentally released the god Set, bringing disaster to the world. The atmosphere was incredible, quiet, spooky, mysterious, exactly like the original game. The game ends with Lara trapped under a collapsing pyramid, seemingly dead. The team wanted this to be her final moment, a proper heroic ending. Fans and critics loved it. Many still say this is the best game in the whole classic series. It sold well and felt like a perfect conclusion. But Eidos Interactive had other plans. Lara was making too much money, and just to end it, so they ordered more games, even though the team had nothing left to give. With no new big story to tell, Chronicles was made from leftover ideas, unused levels, and short stories set to different points in Lara's life. It was designed as a collection of memories told by her friends after her supposed death. It was much shorter than previous games, with only 4 main sections. There was a mix of styles, from stealth sections, underwater exploration, and classic tomb raiding. It had some good ideas, but felt small and unimportant. It was clearly made just to meet the yearly release schedule. Reviews were mixed. Fans enjoyed seeing different sides of Lara, but everyone knew that this wasn't a real new game. It was more like DLC or extra content. Sales dropped noticeably, and the series was starting to feel tired and outdated. This was supposed to be the big reboot, moving to PlayStation 2 with a brand new engine, a darker tone, deeper story, and modern gameplay. Development started in 2000, and the team had big ambitions. They wanted to make a mature cinematic adventure that would take the series forward for another 10 years. But what went wrong? Well, there was rushed development. Eidos pushed the release date forward by 6 months, meaning that the team had to cut huge amounts of content, leaving features unfinished and released before it was ready. New mechanics didn't work. The new controls were slow and heavy and unresponsive. Climbing felt like wading through treacle. Fighting was clumsy. Camera angles were terrible. It was full of bugs. Characters would get stuck in textures, and textures would disappear, puzzles would break, and sometimes the game would just crash entirely. The story was really confusing, half the plot was cut, so what was left felt unfinished and hard to follow. But when it launched, fans and critics were furious. Scores were low, sales were disappointing, and for the first time ever, Tomb Raider was seen as a bad franchise. After 7 games and 7 years, Core Design, the studio that created everything, lost the rights to make Tomb Raider. Eidos handed the series to a new team in America, Crystal Dynamics, and the classic era was over. Crystal Dynamics knew exactly what they had to do. They had to fix what was broken, but keep everything that made Tomb Raider great. They studied every single game, talked to thousands of fans, and completely rebuilt Lara from scratch. The main changes were new controls. They were smooth, responsive, and modern. You moved where you pointed, jumps were accurate, movement felt natural and fun. There was new personality. Lara spoke more, showed emotion, had relationships, and a proper backstory. We learned about her mother's disappearance, her father's work, and why she became an explorer. There was a perfect balance between exploration, puzzles, and combat were all equal parts, exactly what fans had been asking for. The visuals were beautiful, colourful, detailed environments from ancient temples to modern cities. Everything looked incredible. It was a massive success. Critics call it the return to the form we've been waiting for, and fans fell in love with it all over again, and it sold over 6 million copies. Legend didn't just save the series, it proved that Tomb Raider could still be the biggest game in history. To celebrate 10 years of Tomb Raider, Crystal Dynamics remade the very first game from the ground up.
Sometimes, to understand your present, you have to go back to your past.
They kept every single level, every puzzle, every secret, and every enemy, but rebuilt it with Legend's engine, controls, and graphics. But why is it so special? Well, it let old fans relive the magic without dealing with old, clunky controls. It let new fans experience the story that started everything. It stayed 100% faithful to the original version. Nothing was changed or dumbed down. It was still widely considered the best remake ever made, and many fans say that this is the best Tomb Raider game of all time. This was the conclusion of the story that started in Legend. Crystal Dynamics wanted to make the biggest, most ambitious game possible. Levels were massive. You could explore entire ruins, dive deep into oceans, climb huge mountains, and interact with the environment in ways never seen before. What worked with the game were stunning visuals that still look beautiful today. The best movement system in the classic style, Lara could do almost anything. Story tied everything together perfectly, answered all the questions about her family and about her history. But what didn't work about it were that the levels were so big sometimes they felt empty. Combat was a bit too easy. It didn't bring much new to the table. It was great, but it felt like more of the same. By 2010, it was clear the classic formula had been perfected, but it couldn't grow any further. To stay relevant, Tomb Raider needed to completely change.
Mayday! Mayday! This is Lara Croft of the Endurance. We are stranded on an island in the Dragon's Triangle. We need help and medical supplies. Please respond.
Crystal Dynamics made the boldest move in the series' history. They threw away 17 years of backstory, started from scratch, and gave us a brand new Lara. It wasn't confident, experienced explorer we knew. This was a 21-year-old Lara Croft, a smart, brave, but inexperienced archaeological student, shipwrecked on a dangerous island fighting to stay alive.
Many of them again.
Lara, you're alive! Hey! Get off of me! Let go of her!
Waited so long.
With a new direction, it brought a grittier, darker, more emotional tone. We get to see her hurt, get scared, make mistakes, and grow stronger as the story goes on. The gameplay added survival elements, hunt animals, collect resources, craft weapons and tools. Combat was now cover-based, realistic and tactical. Movement was completely open and you could climb almost any surface, go almost anywhere. Tomb Raider was still at the heart of the game. Tombs were now optional but deeper, more complex and more rewarding than ever. Now, with the reaction, some of the old fans were worried. This isn't my Lara. But most players loved it. It sold over 1 million copies, the best-selling game in the whole series, and introduced Tomb Raider to new people, a whole new generation. It won dozens of awards and proved that Lara could work in any style, as long as she stayed true to her core: courage, intelligence, and discovery.
Kill them all!
With Rise of the Tomb Raider, it was widely agreed that this was the best game in the reboot era. Crystal Dynamics took everything that worked in 2013 and made it bigger, better, and more polished. Some of the improvements were that the tombs were the star. They were larger, more detailed, more challenging, and they told their own little stories. The world design was beautiful, varied environments from frozen forests to hidden ancient cities. With a more confident story, you noticed that Lara had become more confident, more focused. She became the adventurer that we recognise. There was loads of customizations, more way to upgrade your gear, weapons and abilities to suit your playstyle. It was a masterpiece, balanced perfectly between action, exploration and puzzle solving. This was the conclusion of the survival trilogy. Set in the jungles of South America, it showed Lara at her most determined, racing to stop a global disaster and finally accepting who she is, the Tomb Raider. What made it different, however, was it was a darker story, and it was the darkest story out of all the series. Lara makes mistakes and costs lives and has to face with the consequences of her obsessions. Had the best tombs ever, huge, dangerous complex with incredible puzzles. Focus on an atmosphere. It was quiet, tense, mysterious, very close to the feeling of the 1996 original. Reviews were positive, but sales were slightly lower than the previous two games. Some players felt it was too dark, too slow, and too similar to Rise, but as a conclusion, it was perfect. It completed her journey from student to legend, and ended the trilogy exactly how it needed to.
What would you do?
After years of fans asking, we finally got proper modern versions of the first three games. Developed by Aspyr Media, they kept every single level secret and feature exactly as they were. But they added fully updated HD graphics, lighting and textures, modern controls options, or keep the original tank controls if you preferred. There was bug fixes that gave quality of life improvements, and all expansions were included in the games. It was a huge success. All fans loved reliving the classics, and new players finally got to see where it all started. It was even more important that they brought back the next generation of games with The Last Revelation, Chronicles and Angel of Darkness, fixing years of problems. Most importantly, they fixed Angel of Darkness, improved controls, restored cut story content, removed bugs and turned it into the game it was always meant to be. Suddenly, what was once seen as a failure became a fascinating, great new adventure.
Good luck, Clara. I fear you may need it.
I make my own luck.
Now, Lara Croft has left an impact with over 100 million games sold worldwide, making it one of the best-selling franchises in history. It broke barriers. Lara Croft was the first major female lead in gaming, paving the way for characters such as Samus Aran, Aloy, Ellie, and many, many more. It defined the genre. Every 3D action-adventure game since, from Uncharted to Assassin's Creed, owes a huge debt to Tomb Raider. And she became a cultural icon with movies, books, comics, theme parks, and an upcoming Netflix series. Lara is now bigger than just games. But why do we love Tomb Raider so much? After 30 years, 13 main games, remakes, movies, and millions of fans, what is it that makes Tomb Raider so special? It's not just the tombs or the puzzles or the action, it's Lara Croft herself. She's smart, brave, independent, curious, and determined. She never gives up, she never backs down, and she always respects the history that she's exploring. Every era has its own magic. The classics gave up mystery and discovery. The legends gave us personality and fun. The reboots gave us heart and emotion. And the best part? No matter which version you love, she's always the same person at her core. An adventurer searching for truth and proving that nothing is impossible if you're brave enough to try. Which era or game is your absolute favourite? Do you love the quiet mystery of the originals, or the excitement of legend, or the emotions of the reboot? And which forgotten game do you think deserves more love? Maybe Chronicles or Angel of Darkness? Let me know in the comments. I'll read every single one. If you enjoyed this deep dive, then hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more of this gaming retrospectives. Thanks very much for watching, guys. And remember, adventure waits for no one.